Okay, welcome to the DeVory Darkins Show. It is November 25th, and we are starting with what I would call Fraud Day or Corruption Day. We actually talked about that last week, right? There was a whole day dedicated to corruption after corruption, and so today is no different, but it's in one particular state, and that is the state of Minnesota, led by a great governor by the name of Tim Walz. As you guys know, he is an impeccable leader with a stunner resume, especially as a military veteran. And if you guys aren't catching on to my sarcasm, then I'll work on it, of course. Anyways, so there was a judge that just came out, overturned a $7.2 million verdict. This is in regards to a Somalian who owned a healthcare business, started to defraud the state and their taxpayer money. We'll get into that. This is in parallel to a $250 million fraud scheme that the Justice Department continues to expose. They just indicted a 78th person in this entire scheme. And there's multiple other fraud schemes that we'll get through in this video. But I'm going to tell you what, right up front. Obviously, not every single person of the Somalia community is corrupt and is, committing crimes. But I'll tell you what, the people in charge of that community, the people who are representing that community, meaning the people who have businesses, who are doing work with the government, and even someone serving in Congress, I would argue, all of them have been corrupt. And I don't think they're representing their community in the brightest way. And if they want to come to our country and be an American citizen, I think the standard for them to represent this country is even higher than people who are born here. Now, that might be extreme, but I'll tell you what, it's a privilege to come to this country. So the last thing you should be doing is defrauding American citizens, including senior citizens, which is what we're going to get to in this video today. And if you guys are new here, it's all about common sense commentary for these uncommon times. I pride myself in showing you guys both sides of the story. You make up your own mind on what you want to believe, but we'll show you everything here. And I think the bottom line up front is very clear. This is another case where local elections absolutely matter. Who you elect at the local level, it does matter, because when you're electing people who are incompetent, things like this get out of hand, okay? I think that's just the bottom line to it. We're live on Rumble, Facebook, X, and YouTube. So if you guys have been following me for quite some time, please make sure that you follow and subscribe to the show. All right, let's go to this first part of this story. This is just craziness, okay? This is just one of a few fraud stories we're going to go through in this show today. But let's start with part one. Take a listen to this.
The August trial for Abdi Fattah Yusuf. The jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company, Promise Health, out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located. Yusuf and his wife, Lol Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant, or PCA, scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money on luxury items for themselves. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Yusuf, Judge Sarah West last week decided they got it wrong.
It's reversing or overturning a jury's verdict.
Defense attorney Joe Tamburino, who's not affiliated with this case, reviewed the decision and analyzed it for KARE 11 News. He says Judge West ruled that the state's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and that she believed the state did not rule out other reasonable inferences.
That, in fact, there could have been other reasonable theories other than guilt in this case. That's what it comes down to.
Despite the ruling, even Judge West wrote that she is troubled by the manner in which fraud was able to be perpetuated at Promise Health.
I was stunned.
State Representative Kristen Robbins, chair of the House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, says she's now reviewing if any state laws need to be tightened.
We want to strengthen state law so that we can get prosecutions out of these cases, because clearly a jury thought he was guilty.
Yeah, let's just take a pause for a second here. We don't need more laws. We need enforcement of the existing laws. We just learned that with the president regarding the border. I mean, we already have laws in place to prevent things like this from happening. But when people are being paid off, which we're going to show you, people are being bribed, people are probably a part of this corruption scheme, and people will literally do anything for money. The enforcement of the law will actually do something about it. So I find that to be interesting. Now, I want to focus on the merits of what's taking place. And in case you're not getting what's happening here, this is another case where they found Somalians, okay, people who are doing business in the community in Minneapolis, guilty of defrauding the government. Okay, that's one. Number two, they were so quick. I mean, the case was brought. The jury heard the case, and within 24 hours, they found this person guilty. Like there was no delay in the process. Okay. Then this judge, which you guys did see a photo of her, claims, well, it's all based on circumstantial evidence. Now, this case has been appealed, just so you guys understand. So we're going to continue to hear more of this. But my question is circumstantial evidence. If there was circumstantial evidence, why would the jury reach a guilty verdict beyond a reasonable doubt? Wouldn't you have thrown out the circumstantial evidence as the judge? Wouldn't you have already said, hey, that's, we can't have that in this case? I'm just saying. Okay, I just find it interesting. Now, let me play part two, and then I want to focus more on some of these key details.
Jurors in the case can't believe the decision.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever. The deliberation took probably 4 hours at most. Based off of the state's evidence that was presented, I was beyond a reasonable doubt.
The attorney for Mr. Youssef, Ian Burrell, sent me a statement today that says, in part, Judge West's ruling affirms what we have maintained from the beginning, that our client, Mr. Youssef, was wrongfully accused and did not commit fraud or racketeering. The Attorney General's office filed an appeal this afternoon, so the Minnesota Court of Appeals will take a second look at this decision. Julie.
So, Lou, did Mr. Tamburino, did he have any kind of emotional reaction? And this is pretty stunning. This does not happen.
Yeah, he leaned towards the idea that this was kind of a one-off and that it would have a good chance at appeal. But the worry is that there's so many other cases just like it where somebody's in the exact same position as Mr. Youssef but is charged with fraud. And if the judge can determine that maybe they didn't know that the fraud was going on underneath them in the case, then other judges could throw it out just like this one.
All right. Do you know how quickly the Court of Appeals would take this up? Any idea?
Probably months.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to waste people's time. So let's go back to this for a second. There's no question the guy bought luxury cars, okay? An empty office, okay? Didn't pay certain tax dollars. This is all in the indictment, by the way. And if we're just grading on the merits of what's taking place here, I mean, let me ask a question. The people of Minnesota, they're out $7.2 million regarding this case. So overturning this is already a problem, okay? It continues to show that some of these people are going to get away with these crimes. Now, they're going to appeal it. We'll see what the appeals court has to say about it. But in our country, when we've got multi-million-dollar fraud schemes, I think the last thing people want to hear about, well, we're going to have to kick this case back because of a technicality. I think especially if a jury has ruled that the guy was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. $7.2 million was destined for the disabled and the elderly. We're talking about Medicaid money, folks. But if the prosecution was lazy, which doesn't sound like they were, because, I mean, a judge could always overrule the jury. Let's just take her word for it. Let's say the prosecution was lazy. Okay. The guy's going to get tried again. All right. He's going to get indicted again, and he'll probably get convicted, okay? But it's a waste of taxpayer money to begin with that you have to restart the whole case to, over again. Now, if you're thinking about the $7 million and you're like, hey, man, that's a lot of money. Well, that's nothing compared to what the Department of Justice is doing today, which I'll bring it to you here on the screen. They just indicted a 78th defendant in the feeding of our future fraud scheme. Remember, this scheme was at $250. Now people are saying it's $300 million, dating back to the year of 2022, meaning members of the Somalia community were supposed to be making meals. They had a business serving the underprivileged, low income youth and children, making sure they had food. And what happened at the end of the day? They actually didn't serve them, okay? I mean, it's really astounding what's taking place in Minnesota, and for a governor who was so obsessed with Elon Musk and Tesla's downfall, right, as he would love to call it, and the Trump administration, he has a funny way of showing that he cares about his own community when he's allowing a community that's not even from here, when he allows people to immigrate to this country and then commit these type of frauds on his watch under his leadership. I think that kind of tells you who he is, okay? There's no way he doesn't know anything about this. He's very aware of this, okay? I think at a certain extent, these people just tolerate the corruption, okay, until they have to do something about it. I mean, think about how many people are connected to $300 million worth of fraud, okay? How many people at the lower level, all right? How many people at the mid-level? I think there's quite a few people. And when you have 78 people being indicted under this fraud, you know you have problems, okay? So why do I say all this? Well, I say all this because the polar opposite to it all is what Ilhan Omar has to say. According to her, the people of the Somalia community, they're fabrics of this nation. They should not be treated in an inhumane way. They deserve the utmost respect. They're American citizens too. And so what the president is seeking to do, what Tom Emmer is seeking to do, is all a bunch of bull. And let me just show you what she said, and then we'll circle back on the president and Tom Emmer. Take a listen.
It is unfortunate that we are led by a president who does not understand the laws of this land. Even little kids in 8th grade know that that is not an authority that the president has and can wield. So if you are confused, if you feel threatened, know that the law is on your side and our demented president can't do anything about it. Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as a fabric of this nation. So not only are we not going anywhere, we are not going to allow anybody to make us feel less Minnesotan or less American.
Yeah, that's her reaction. Reaction to what exactly? Well, Tom Emmer, who's a Republican out of Minnesota, is now calling for an investigation. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the president has announced and directed DHS to revoke these people's temporary protective status, meaning people who are claimed to be refugees, who have come to this country on a temporary basis to make sure their asylum claims are honored, etc., things of that nature, okay? And just so you guys understand my own personal opinion, I think this is a time to be ultra strict. I think this is a time to be really obsessed with what is the proper term? Something that, the Biden administration was allergic to, vetting people, okay? That's exactly should be priority number one. Now, here's what Tom Emmer had to say. Take a listen.
Majority Whip Tom Emmer, meanwhile, is calling to investigate a report published by the Manhattan Institute. It claims Minnesota tax dollars are being sent to Somalia and ending up in the hands of a terror group. Meanwhile, President Trump writing on Truth Social, I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. Jeff Paul has the story for us live from Los Angeles. Hi, Jeff.
Hey there. Well, yeah, Congressman Emmer says if this is true, it would not only be a grave national security concern, but a slap in the face to the hardworking, law-abiding people of Minnesota. This all stems back to a single report published by urban policy magazine City Journal, which is published by conservative think tank the Manhattan Institute. The report, citing unnamed sources, alleges funding that was supposed to go to state programs to help with housing and feeding people was being stolen. It claims some of that money was then sent to Somalia through a complex network where it eventually, according to the City Journal, ends up aiding the al-Qaeda-linked terror group Al-Shabaab. Congressman Emmer, along with 3 other members of Congress, have now signed a letter addressed to Minnesota's U.S. Attorney demanding answers.
You simply can't continue doing this. It's one thing to bilk the Minnesota taxpayers. That's bad enough. But to ship the money to a terrorist organization, Al-Shabaab, I mean, any average Minnesotan should not want to put up with that at all.
I mean, I don't care what the community is. The fact that taxpayers are funding a terrorist organization, I think that tells you everything we need to know. Results driven here, okay? Why would taxpayer dollars be going to a terrorist organization? Because the people who are in charge are incompetent. They're corrupt. They clearly are not doing anything in the best interest of the people of Minnesota, and all of them should be fired. I mean, if this was happening in the military, they would fire the whole chain of command. Okay, they would remove people, they would court-martial people, they would demote people. There would be no hesitation. But I find it fascinating in the civilian world, particularly in these federal governments or state governments, is what I mean to say, accountability is scarce. You know, and this is a time for accountability, which is interesting. You know, I really do believe that the governor should be up for impeachment in some way, shape, or form. He should be getting a camera in his face everywhere he goes. But we know mainstream media isn't going to do that because everything is about Trump right now. So stories like this, really, they never get the attention they really deserve because President Trump is in the White House right now. No one wants to talk about this stuff. Now, I find it fascinating that when my team and I, we were looking at the mainstream media clips, because as you guys know, when we put the show together, we like to find both sides. So we're looking for the reporting regarding this entire fraud situation, not just with the $7.2 million verdict, but the $250 million fraud scheme. Barely anything on MSDNC, as I continue to call them. In fact, the only thing you're going to find on MSDNC is this following clip. Take a listen.
Protests in Minneapolis this weekend. Members of the Somali community in Minneapolis rallying at the Carmel Mall, along with non-Somali supporters from the Twin Cities, people protesting against Trump's threat to take away immigration protections from Somali people who have been in this country legally for years.
The City Journal reports.
That's it. 7 seconds. 7 seconds. That's it. That's all you're going to find. I mean, isn't that, these people are supposed to be journalists. They say they care about the United States of America. They believe taxpayer dollars should be going to things that are going to advance our society, and they have all the empathy in the world. You think they'd have empathy for the senior citizens who've been defrauded at the hands of these criminals. But they don't want to talk about that. It's interesting. That's all I'm going to say. It's interesting why that is. And, you know, in a perfect world, all news stations would be like your local affiliate news stations, where all they do is they just tell you what the facts are. The who, the where, the when, the what, the why, and that's it. They don't have any spin on it. Sometimes they do, but when you're talking about like a local TV news station, they don't really get into all of that, you know, talk and rhetoric and stuff like that. It's when you get up to the CNNs of the world, Fox News and MS Now, whatever you want to call them. They all have a rhetoric and a narrative. And, you know, me going on this tangent, I will say this briefly. I think in the future, what's going to happen is these local affiliate TV stations will continue to rise in value, because I think people are going to value that more than they value CNN and ABC and all these other networks that continue to pump propaganda into the minds of the American people. Now, let's just take a moment to talk about Kalshi. Kalshi is a betting market, a prediction market, as you guys may know, is one of the few sources in the last election that predicted the outcome before most people did, even people who pride themselves in being professional pollsters with over 20 years of experience who said, oh my God, you know, the election is super tight. We don't know who's going to win. Well, according to Kalshi, they already had the president winning. At any rate, Kalshi right now is offering a $10 promo if you guys want to bet on literally anything. You could bet on politics, sports, culture, crypto, climate. Yeah, can you believe that? Climate? Economics, which is a good one in my opinion. In fact, they just had a report that came out today that CPI was lower than expected. So there you go. And also companies, financials, tech, science, health, and overall in the world. I mean, you could literally bet on anything here, okay? So if you're that type of person, you want to obviously get into things like this, you could take advantage of the $10 promo. It's in the description below this video, or just go to kalshi.com /DeVory. All right, let's get to, let's go here. When I was reading this story, let me go right here. This is just fascinating. When I was reading this story, I wanted to look at what the jurors were saying, right? They had a clip in there, and it's interesting. So quote this, that in fact, there could have been other reasonable theories other than guilt in this case. That's what the judge is saying. Let me read that to you and just get your guys' reaction. Do you believe that makes sense? There could have been other reasonable theories other than guilt in this case. What other theories could there be? If you're in charge of the business that is committing fraud, it doesn't matter if you triggered the fraud, if you did the fraud, if you executed the fraud, you tried to prevent the fraud. Your name is on those legal documents. You're ultimately responsible. At a minimum, this guy's guilty. Now, they might want to change the charges, maybe the number of counts regarding the indictment. But, I mean, everybody knows if your name is on the paper and it's registered in your name, you're in trouble, okay? You are legally liable. At a minimum, if the appeals court strikes this down, they should just sue him civilly. That's exactly what should happen. And then this judge gives some offhand comment that she's troubled by the manner in which fraud was able to be. Well, then hold people accountable if you're so troubled, right? If you're so troubled, then hold the guy accountable. Okay. Quote from one of the jurors said, "We didn't take our job lightly. We went through a lot of evidence, discussed a lot, took our time, but we all came to an agreement pretty easily." So what does it say about a country where the criminals can get off because the justice system is letting them off? We live in a country today where someone can get arrested 22 times, 14 times, 49 times. Now it's being reported the guy was arrested 73 times, the man out of Chicago who burned a lady on the subway. This is the country we live in today. This is why I said local elections matter. Now, you might not be able to do anything about the president. You might not be able to do anything about Congress because these people are clearly slave to the donors. There's no question about it. They're bought and paid for. But the people at the local level, that's not the case, okay? Not every single position is in that way. So you have a little bit more influence. And what I find to be more disturbing, and I'm assuming the Department of Justice is aware of this already, that you can go out there and say, we're going to prosecute James Comey, or we are going to indict this fraud scheme out of Minnesota. It doesn't mean anything if you're not going to do something about these rogue judges. That's where Congress comes into play. Why is it that Congress has yet to introduce a bill and vote on it regarding how rogue some of these judges have become? I mean, it literally is exactly what Stephen Miller called it, a judicial tyranny. In some cases, they are committing malpractice on the job. Go to North Carolina, particularly Charlotte, the guy who stabbed the lady in the neck from Ukraine. She bled out on the damn subway, and come to find out the judge doesn't even have a law degree. What are we talking about here? How do you not have a law degree, but you're presiding over a case with a criminal like this? I get it. You want to preside over a case regarding maybe DUI, administrative violations, things of that nature. But we're talking about a guy who murdered a lady. Violent criminals. So, yeah, local elections absolutely matter. Things can change at the local level to prevent a lot of this stuff from happening. We cannot expect the president of the United States to go into every single city and do their job for them, right? And so that's kind of like my big takeaway when I have to read these stories every day. It's craziness. It really is. All right. Why don't we get what you guys have to say about this so far, and then we'll kind of move on. I'm going to start reading some questions. All right. It just really makes you think about the direction this country is going in. It really does. All right, so I'm on YouTube first. Shout out to you, YouTube. Thank you guys for watching today. Let's see what questions or comments you guys have. Investigate the activist judges. Yeah. You see, this is the risk of the Trump administration. Okay? Every single one of them, the president, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, all of them. You can't keep telling us, yeah, we're going to hold people accountable, And the best you can come up with is mortgage fraud indictments. You got to come harder than that. That's number one. Number two, what are you guys doing about these rogue judges that are clearly usurping the president of the United States? Yes, they can do something about it. Congress has the power. So GOP, can you grow a spine for a chance? Right? And I'm not asking for a civil war here. I'm just asking for common sense. I mean, you have judges signing off on people of Congress being spied on. Okay? What's going on with that? Let's see here. It sounds like somebody's getting kickbacks. It's not just kickbacks. People were getting bribed. People were getting threatened when it comes to these fraud cases out of Minnesota. There's indictments on that as well. So here's a solution. So I don't sound like I'm just complaining all day. Okay. Enforce the existing law in the books. If you're going to add any more laws, the laws should apply to the judges who are presiding over these cases. That's exactly what should happen. That's exactly what should happen. Listen, you want to add another law? If you get arrested more than, and I'm being lenient here, if you get arrested more than 10 times, you are finished. You're either going to sit in prison for the rest of your life, or you're going to sit in a mental institution for the rest of your life, or your ass is going to get deported. You pick. Because what's not going to happen is someone committing crimes repeatedly and then being released back onto the street so they can murder someone who's innocent. How is that justified exactly? That makes no sense. Now, people will say, DeVory, but that's just the way the justice system is. That's just the way the law is. Then why don't we work to fix it? Okay, let's keep going here. Now I'm on Rumble. Shout out to Rumble. Yep. Fraud in Minnesota Twin Cities is 90% Somalian people. Local news doesn't report it. Minnesota taxpayers have lost almost $1 billion in fraud. Yeah. See, at a certain extent, you just have to accept the fact is, they just don't care. That's what it is. They just don't care. When you don't have a law degree, it can't be taken away. Totally makes sense. So what's the Black Tim Pool shilling today? I don't know. You tell me. Since you know who I am, since you know what I believe in, and you know my whole situation, why don't you tell everybody in the comments what I'm up to today? You have all the time in the world to come in my comments and make an ignorant comment. So why don't you educate us? Let's keep going. Is there a way for Trump to disregard lower courts until it's brought at least mid-level? No. They can't do that. That's why they have to appeal immediately. Again, DeVory, again and again, none of this loony left news is going to win us the midterms. I keep telling you we need to focus on kitchen table issues, which is losing us in the polls right now. And the interesting part about your statement is it's true right now, but the fascinating part is people are not dumb, meaning when people get that tax money in March and February, people are going to feel a little different about the economy. I guarantee it. Unless we dip into a recession, which I know that's not going to happen because they're going to do whatever they can to prevent that. And then there's going to be a new Fed chair that comes in. And then the one big beautiful bill is going to come into effect. Yeah, I think people are going to feel differently about the economy in March than they do today. That's an educated guess, obviously, speculation. Let's see here. Whatever happens to the 3 strikes, you're out from Reagan. I have no idea what happened. I have no idea. I have no idea whatsoever. I see. That's why, in my opinion, guys, I'm in the wrong generation. I tell my wife this sometimes, that I feel like I was born in the wrong generation, in the wrong time period. Because some of you guys already know this. I was adopted, okay? The woman who adopted me was my grandmother's sister. She was born in 1933. So I was raised by a person who was born in 1933. You already understand their parenting style, okay? I appreciate that type of parenting style. I appreciate their mindset because their mindset was about results. None of this bullshit excuses, nothing about your damn feelings, none of this lazy stuff. We will hold you accountable to the highest standard. We need to get back to that as a country. None of this, I'm going to pat you on the back because you got last place. None of this, I'm going to cater to your feelings. No. What we should be doing is teaching people how to manage their emotions. We should be teaching people how to exercise their mental faculties, not catering to how they feel. Because when we cater to how people feel, you got people who are in these elected positions making laws based on that. Well, Sam, who now wants to be known as Sarah because I care about her feelings, it's okay for Sarah, who really is a boy, to play in a girl's sports. I just want them to feel comfortable. Screw them feeling comfortable. What are you talking about? They're fucking confused. Okay? I don't mean to curse, but God, this stuff gets me going. It's just fascinating, their mindset around this stuff. The problem, what's happened over time, is politics has now infected almost every aspect of our lives. We have no choice but to speak up. You go back 20 years ago, most of us didn't really have much to say. Now that you're playing around with kids, you're playing around with their health, their body parts, you're trying to manipulate policies to enable more corruption. Yeah, we should be saying something. Yeah, we should be standing up. My apologies on the curse scene. Okay, let's keep going. If we get rid of Jews, will black Democrats stop sucker punching my white granddaddy while illegal self-deport, and will trannies detransition? I don't think Jews have anything to do with it. I'm sorry to break the news to you. Okay. Listen, we can't, if you blame everything on the Jews, then that means nobody gets to take any responsibility. Does that make sense? We all have something called free will. Okay. Let's keep going here. Yep. Oh, here's what happened to 3 strikes. Thank you. Al Sharpton claimed that judges were putting black men in jail for life because the first 2 convictions were for being alive while black. Well, listen, okay. Let's say Al Sharpton was correct. Okay, let's say that is correct. All right. I didn't even say 3 strikes. I said 10 strikes. Okay. I mean, if a person is arrested more than 10 times, what are we doing here? Right? I mean, that's common sense. A guy has committed a crime 10 times. Don't you think they don't belong back onto the streets? And then the judge who was presiding over the guy out of Chicago, her excuse was, well, my job isn't to listen to the attorney general just because they want somebody locked up. No, your job is actually to enforce the law and make sure that you keep the community safe. What are you talking about? Okay. Yes. Guy was arrested a total of 73 times. Yep. So he had been arrested 72 times and released, and the 73rd time was after he burned that lady on the subway. Yeah. I think it's simple. I mean, just send people to prison and call it a day. Well, remember, people like Zohran Mamdani, they don't believe in prison, okay? They believe that doesn't help. Okay, so the hardest of criminals, you're not going to save them, bro. What are you talking about? You think you can save people like Jeffrey Dahmer as an example? You think you can save someone who's committed a crime 15 times in a row? You're not saving them, okay? And if you want to save them, then do that in the confines of a prison, in a controlled environment. Don't release them back into the community. So I'm not even criticizing their level of empathy for the people who truly believe in this stuff, because there are people who do believe that the prison system doesn't work. Okay. Well, if you're going to say the prison system doesn't work, the justice system doesn't work either when they release these people back into the community. I mean, I don't know. That's just the way that I see it. So, of course, the president is spot on by, wanting to do something about this community in Minnesota and some of these people who are here on a, asylum claim, or they're here temporarily. He has the authority. He could just tell Kristi Noem to do something about it, because what other leverage does he have? I mean, he could freeze federal funding. How far will that really go? See, that's what I'm saying. I'm not too sure. As voters, we sometimes have the stomach of what we want the president to truly do here. It's really fascinating. You have this whole protest about no kings, but some of this stuff, if we really want it fixed, would require a king, essentially. If you think about it. I mean, we would want the president to go into Minnesota, cut off all federal benefits, okay, investigate everyone from the top down. And if he were to do that, people would be like, oh my, he's throwing away people in prison and he's being a tyrant and all this other stuff. Well, how else will these people be held accountable if judges are just letting them off? How else will they be accountable if they're being bought and paid for by these people? Here's an example, just so you guys understand. This is why these people were not being investigated to begin with.
The City Journal report says and shows that there has been massive fraud, defrauding of American taxpayers, including of things like COVID-era loans and much more, and that some people in the Somali community in Minnesota have sent money from those schemes back to Somalia, and that some of them have found their way into the hands of the al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group Al-Shabaab. This is an incredibly serious report, an incredibly serious allegation. It suggests that money paid by American taxpayers could have found its way into the hands of an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group. And in any case, even if it is simply a case of fraud in which people were sending money from American taxpayers back to their families in Somalia, is still fraud. Somalia has been in a state of civil war for decades, but there is no reason why that should be a defense for defrauding the American taxpayer. And that's what the president has said he's going to address.
And now the big question is, where's Governor Walz? I mean, the president's directly calling him out on this.
Well, yes. And I mean, to hear Congresswoman Ilhan Omar there, you'd have thought that once again, this is purely an issue of language. She says the language about this is dangerous. It's not about the language. It's about the facts. It's about whether or not American taxpayer money and the American taxpayer has been defrauded by members of the Somali community in Minnesota. The City Journal report says and shows that there has been...
Yeah. So the reason why Omar will not take any accountability, the reason why Tim Walz won't take any accountability is because they're probably some way, shape, or form tolerating this because they've received either political leverage or cash or assets somewhere along the way. I mean, how else do you explain it? I mean, Tim Walz, you're supposed to be a military veteran responsible for the people of Minnesota, and you're allowing things like this to happen. And when you have an opportunity to come out and condemn this behavior, you don't. What you do is you condemn the rhetoric from the president. So it's just interesting. In fact, let me show you what Mr. Walz is up to. Tampon Walz, stolen valor Walz is what I really like to call him. Let's take a look at this. So he's responding to Senator Mark Kelly's post, which he's a disgrace too, as a member of Congress, that is. Let me zoom in. Few Americans have served our nation with dignity, courage, and patriotism of Captain Mark Kelly. Unlike President Trump, his loyalties lie to the people and to the Constitution. And what does your loyalty lie with, Governor Tim Walz? I mean, we're talking what? Almost $1 billion in fraud. And guys, notice I've only been focusing on the Somalia community. I'm not even focusing on the other fraud that is taking place within his own chain of command. Okay. I don't know. This stuff is it's just fascinating to me. So let's just focus on the actual facts, okay? Let me read this to you guys. I think you'll appreciate this. I asked AI in 5 different ways to just give me the bottom line to it here. Okay, let's go over the fraud. 300 million so far, 78 defendants charged. This is the pandemic food fraud, also known as Feeding Our Future scheme. Okay. Second fraud, Medicaid and Autism Center fraud. It was happened under Smart Therapy LLC, an amount of $14 million. Then the one we talked about in today's show is Promise Health Services at $7.2 million. Then you have another one from a company called Housing Stabilization Services, Ring. I believe their business name is Brilliant Mind Services, $2.3 million. Then you have another one. I don't even know how to pronounce that. $2.2 million. Then you have another one, Liberty Plus LLC, $1.2 million. Do you guys get it? But hey, you know, when you're the governor, you want to be involved in all this political rhetoric about what the president is saying about this and what he's saying about that, when you really should be responding to these people. He should be screaming about these people and what they've done to Minnesota. Somebody's grandma has been screwed by these people, and he's got nothing to say. This reminds me of when Doge was getting too close to where all the money was going, and Elizabeth Warren was screaming about, oh, your personal data, they're going to have access to your personal data. It's funny how you guys never scream about people in the Philippines defrauding the American citizen. It's funny how you never scream about people from India defrauding senior citizens, right? They have nothing to say about that. So it's all political games at the end of the day. So where does that take us? Well, I don't know. I think the people of Minnesota should wake up. Or if you live in Minnesota, might be a good idea to move, you know, and find another state to live in where maybe you won't be subjected to things like this. Who knows? All right, let's see what you guys have to say about that. It's truly fascinating. Okay. POTUS, please do something. I would love for him to do something, but I think if he did exactly what we wanted him to do, people would pass out. People would throw up. You know, it's truly interesting. The president has to do he's got to do radical things because what's been happening is radical. Okay. That's just the reality to it. You know? That's just the way that I see it. Give me a moment, guys. All right. Let's keep going. Someone says St. Paul is popping off right now. Someone said, no, don't tell them to move. They'll take their politics that got them the trash local government. They're fleeing with them. Keep my Texas red. Your Texas is redder than it's ever been. You have nothing to worry about, according to the last election. Someone said that on Steven Crowder's show this morning, they claim with evidence that the average IQ in Somalia is 67. 70 is considered retarded. Yeah, you know, we don't even have to get into attacking a community or talking about the people of the community. Just we could focus on the merits of the case, which is why are you guys not, what are you guys doing with your system when it comes to audits, security? How do you guys not catch this stuff? Like, how does that exactly happen? And when people are finally caught, why are you not holding them accountable? You know? Let's go to YouTube. Yeah. Let's say they're great at fraud. Yeah, apparently. So, you know, this is the only criticism that I think is starting to get some more attention besides Epstein and, Pam Bondi, which is that people want to see Trump go all the way. What does all the way look like? Well, let's go through it here. Number one, let's start with the education system. If I was him, I would ruin these universities. I would blow it up. They'd hate me for it, and people would call me names. And here's the other thing. I think it's clear that the president loves praise, but he's got to understand something. He's never going to be an insider, okay? He'll never get the credit he truly deserves. So just go ahead and accept it. So instead of catering to, the tech bros and all this other stuff, just go ahead and rip it apart, blow it up. Just do what needs to get done. Because if you don't do it, more people are just going to get hurt. And people will get hurt in the process of trying to fix this system. So yeah, blow it up, let the universities go out of business. Reform the education system. Disband the Department of Education. They failed students every step of the way, okay? I don't understand how you increase the number of employees working under the Department of Education, but the quality of education never increases. Yeah, that's utter failure, okay? So there's that. And then we get into, federal funding for these states. I'd bleed them dry. Bleed them dry. I don't understand why the taxpayer has to continue to fund fraud. I'm not understanding that. And fight it out. Because we know members of Congress will fight the president on this. We know that. But fight it out. And these are, what's interesting? Maybe he needs to appoint someone who could better communicate this stuff. Everyone will get on board with knowing your taxpayer dollars are going to fraud in SNAP, fraud with welfare, fraud when it comes to what's happening at the state level. We're not funding any of that. I think people can get on board with that, okay? I think that's legitimate. The American people got on board with mass deportation. Now, some of them disagree with the methods that are being used, but overall, the bottom line is they support mass deportation. They don't want illegal immigrants in our country. So I would just appoint someone who can communicate this stuff and go all in. Go hard. Do exactly what Elon Musk attempted to do. The problem with Elon Musk is he's too smart. He got too close. They had to get him out of there. If you think about it, and this whole story about Doge is over with. No, it's not. What happened is you don't need this whole top level federal organization. They've already been implemented in every single agency. So you don't need a Doge agency when Doge is literally in every agency, if that makes sense. So again, where am I at? Number one, I would finally hold universities accountable to the highest degree. Anti-Semitism, you literally were strangling them over it. Strangle them over all the other stuff. The blatant student loan scam, the wasting of students' time with these extracurricular activities have nothing to do with the, what type of job they're actually trying to get. I mean, let's just go ahead and get it over with. Accepting 600,000 Chinese students, no thank you. Now, I believe that probably happened because a deal had to be made business-wise with China. That's the only reason that would even make sense. But again, I wouldn't do it. And then we go to these states like California. Don't give them any more federal funds. Just let them go ahead and die. Just let them die off. If they want to build a high-speed rail that leads to nowhere and will never be finished, let them use their own money to do that. Okay? If they want to continue to screw the people of California with high electricity prices, we don't need to subsidize that. If they want to allow every illegal immigrant who crossed the border illegally to get health care in California, let them do that. Why would we fund that? I'm not understanding. There's no reason to give them any more federal funds. Well, DeVory, you don't understand. I mean, some people are innocent in this process. I agree with you. There are going to be people who are hurt if he was to execute this. I get it. But if you don't do this, you're not going to fix this. The root cause is the federal government is subsidizing a lot of this fraud and corruption. So let's just go ahead and call it a day. Let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off, let them bleed out, and start fresh. I'm just not too sure the people in the government, particularly his cabinet or members of Congress, will allow the president to do it. In fact, I believe if he really tried to go down this route, he would probably get taken out. I think anybody who's ever challenged the very fabric of this country and the corruption, they've always been assassinated. So, you know, and I'm not going to get into who we already know would be behind it, because I think there's a 3-letter agency that's really effective at doing things like this. And so I'll stop it right there. But yeah, if I had it my way, I would really like to see the president go even further. I think he's only done a fraction. I think he's just touching it, the surface. Just go in. Because when we're hearing $1 billion just in the state of Minnesota, if this is happening in Minnesota, what's happening in New York? What's happening in California? Right? What's happening in these other states? It's not going to be perfect. I get it. It's not going to be perfect. There will be fraud. There will be people who commit crimes. But to what degree should we allow it? I mean, when is enough enough? I guess is the better question. You know? All right. See, these are the type of things that if we're going to see people march down to the Capitol and protest, these would be things that would be worthy of protesting. You know, I mean, these would be things worthy of disrupting businesses. All right. And I don't want anybody's business to be disrupted. But what I mean is, like, imagine if 1 million people marched on Capitol Hill talking about these very issues and refused to leave. Members of Congress would have no choice but to address this. See, that's where I do agree. People do have the power. We may not be able to control foreign influence and lobbyists and special interest groups and how they literally are controlling our politicians. We may not be able to control that directly, but we can control literally how they respond to us. If we're not going to say anything, why would they ever give it any attention? And I think we have a legitimate chance right now to make a huge difference here. And so it's interesting how you got all these people showing up to No King's protest. They don't even know what they're protesting. It's interesting. They say, oh, well, you know, innocent people are being kidnapped in the middle of the night. Yeah, and innocent people are being raped and murdered and trafficked throughout this country that are American citizens, might I add. Are you guys protesting for that too? Let's just be consistent. That's all I'm asking for here. Okay? How could you be outraged by someone who's in the country illegally, getting picked up at Home Depot, but you're not outraged by someone who got murdered by an illegal alien? You're not outraged by someone who has committed multiple DUIs, someone who got their commercial driver's license illegally? They can't even pass a test or speak English, and then they commit a fatal accident on the highway. You're not outraged by that? You're not outraged even if we get away from immigration. You're not outraged by people stabbing women on the damn subway and setting them on fire. You're not outraged by the fact that Alvin Bragg had the balls to prosecute a U.S. Marine for him protecting a New Yorker on the subway. So save me the outrage. See, we don't even have to be tribal. Just be consistent. If you don't want to be outraged by that, then just go ahead and say what it is. You love illegal immigrants more than you love the American people. You love criminals more than you love the American people. In some cases, you probably hate this country more than you love it. I think that's probably what they should just say out loud. At least we'll know where they stand. See, I can give progressives some credit. See, at least progressives will stand on what they believe in. They tell you exactly what they want. Okay? And they believe it. But you got these people who are pretty much flip-floppers, and they just go with the wind, and they just say whatever propaganda tells them to say. They don't believe in all that stuff. They're just saying it. They don't even know why they're protesting. They don't even know why they're saying it. They don't even understand what they're saying. When they start saying the president is a fascist, they don't even know the definition of fascist. They don't even know what it even looks like. Why? They've never even experienced fascism, because this country is not fascist. It's just like, I mean, fascism is literally the word racist today. Everything is fascist. You're a fascist, right? That's low IQ stuff. Why don't you articulate why that is and give me a prime example of it? They can't do that either. It's just like these 6 Democrats who claim the president in some way, shape, or form might be, maybe, could be issuing unlawful orders. But when pressed on providing a concrete example of an unlawful order issued by the commander-in-chief, they can't tell you. This is the part where we have to push back every step of the way. We cannot allow people who are in front of a camera to continue to spew off talking points and not press them on the fact that, hey, you're talking about what may, could, hypothetically happen, but what actually hasn't happened. That has to be pushed back. And the interesting part about it is the people failing to push back on this are people where it's their profession to push back, and they refuse to do it. Okay. Let's see what you guys have to say. And then people are, I guess, shocked at what's happening on the left and the right, where you have these new movements that are running in contradiction to the president. Okay? I'm not surprised either. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, if the president does not deliver, don't be surprised by the reaction on the right. Okay? The establishment has failed to deliver for the American people, and what happened over time? Populism became more popular and more in demand, which is why the president was elected to begin with. And I still believe the president's going to get the job done. I mean, it's only been 10 months for the record, okay? So let's not act like it's been 4 years. And what he needs to do and what he needs to fix is not something that happened in 10 months, by the way. These are things that have happened for decades on end. It's like the whole thing with China. This guy's not going to fix China overnight, you know? But can he do anything, you know, to create some headway here? Yeah. I think he did a couple of things. I mean, I really do believe that. But that's only one branch of the government. So it goes back to the solution again, which is Citizens United should be overturned. Citizens United should be overturned. Money in politics, folks. All right. I'm going to get into reading your comments, and I'm going to wrap up. Let's see here. Trump is loyal to Israel and is protecting pedos from Epstein Island. People who still support him are zombies like Biden. All right, you ready for a thought exercise? Let's go with that. Let's say what you said is true. Trump, let's just take the first part. Trump is loyal to Israel. Okay. Are we shocked by that? I mean, 77 million people knew that going in. Okay. I mean, he got $200 million from someone who represents Israel, if you think about it. So I'm not stunned by that, okay? Secondly, your part about protecting pedos from Epstein Island, listen, that's a legitimate criticism. You know, it's a legitimate criticism. There's only really two scenarios here. Number one, either there's some national security implications on why he was so hesitant to go ahead and, you know, release whatever needs to be released, or it is that simple. There's too many power people involved. It would throw off a lot of things he's trying to do because these people are in positions of power and they have certain leverage over him, his administration, and the country as a whole. And if he really wanted to do it, he might get wiped off. He might get taken out himself. That's possible, you know. But I guess the fascinating part about the Epstein stuff is even if I say everything you're saying is true, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? It's 10 months in. We went through the 20 promises that he ran on in his campaign. He has definitively, objectively completed 12 of them so far. So he's 12 for 20 in the first 10 months. This is no spin, no bias. If you go to the website yourself and you look at the 20 promises that he ran on, he's already completed 20 of them. Or excuse me, he already completed 12 of them. So what is the alternative? Listen, you're talking to a guy who was molested as a kid. I get it. I want pedos arrested every step of the way. But I'm not naive either to know what's going on here. And clearly there's some leverage. Clearly there is some things in the background that we are unaware of. And, you know, listen, if I had it my way, just so you understand, if I had it my way, I would burn it to the ground. I don't care if our institutions go out of business. Quite frankly, if people get hurt in the process, I really don't have much empathy because I just think it's the natural order of things. Sometimes you got to burn it down to build it back up. If half the government was corrupted or implicated in this Epstein stuff, good. Throw them all in prison. So I'm radical on the position, but I'm also exercising something called, being practical here, which is what's the alternative? Let people like AOC take over? And you think you have a pedo problem now. These people believe boys can play in girls' sports. They believe the government knows more about parenting than the parents do. They also have this certain wing of their party that believes in that it's not a problem for people to be attracted to children, okay? So let's just run the calculations here. So I guess in a sense you could say it's a lesser of two evils. Which one? Yeah, I'm taking the president right now over, what the alternative is. But that doesn't mean, the president is the end all be all. This guy's going to leave office, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. And then what? So that's why I keep saying we should be focused on local elections, what we just saw in Minnesota. We should, at a minimum, number one, be focusing on ourselves individually, improving our own situation. We don't need the federal government to do that, by the way. But we also have to stay aware. So yeah, that's just. I don't like the Epstein stuff. I think that was a dropping of the ball. And knowing who the president's been since day one, I just find it hard to believe that he would purposely fight against releasing it just because he doesn't want it released. There's got to be something way bigger than that. And on principle, that's a loss for him. On principle, that's a loss for him. The reality is, it might make sense if we were behind closed doors and we had access to certain pieces of information that was like, oh, okay, I could see. Oh, I see why you're doing this. I see why you're delaying this. I see why you may be setting Democrats up. Okay. Possible. And if none of that is possible, then yeah, we should just burn it down. All right. Let's see here. I'm on YouTube right now. 4 years of Biden and Obama got us to this point. I asked somebody the other day, what do you think was the peak and the start of our decline as a country? A lot of people will say our country started to decline right after 9/11. It doesn't matter what you believe caused 9/11. It doesn't really matter who you believe is behind 9/11. Just focus on the results. What happened to the federal government after 9/11? What have they been allowed to do because of 9/11? How bigger did the government become after 9/11? So, and then you have this whole birth of these tech companies, i.e. social media, to the point where the average person, is not really aware. I mean, they're not even living in the present moment. They're a walking zombie, glued to their phone. So, that's why I'm a big proponent of mindset, guys. You have to think for yourself. Thinking for yourself means you're willing to challenge what you're being told. You're willing to challenge your own belief system. And the interesting part about our society, when we start to challenge our own belief system, depending on what culture you're in, you're going to get a lot of backlash. See, the good news about DeVory is I never really was a person who fit in. Okay? I didn't fit in when I went to an all-white school, and I didn't fit in when I went to an all-black school. That's why I was telling you guys earlier. Sometimes I feel like I was born in the wrong generation. But the point is that when you start challenging ideas, you're going to get pushback. But I think if we're going to rise to our greatest potential in life, we should be questioning our belief system. We should be questioning a lot of these ideas that are being communicated to us, especially on social media. We have a whole problem happening right now on social media. Senior citizens cannot even tell the difference between a real raw video clip and an AI generated clip. Okay? And AI is only going to get better, guys. It's going to get to a point where you literally cannot tell the difference no matter how old you are. That's why we have to continue to encourage people to think for themselves. All right, I think that's it of my ranting. I thank you guys for joining us today. I think the big takeaway from this story regarding Minnesota is that local elections do matter, that maybe we should be cutthroat when it comes to immigration, especially vetting people. I think American citizens should come first. I don't think our country is strong when we continue to allow people from Somalia, like these people that we talked about in this show, to defraud the American citizen and their taxpayer and their tax dollars. So that's number one. Number two, I think if I had it my way, the Trump administration should go harder, go all the way, even if it causes catastrophic failure in certain cities. Even if the government has to collapse. So what? So you'd rather allow the American citizen to continue to get screwed based on this idea of trying to uphold a certain institution? No, institutions should not take precedent over the American citizen. If an institution it needs to be burned down so it could be rebuilt in a proper way, let's do that. What do you think happens with real estate every single day? Sometimes you got to gut the house to its studs. Sometimes you just need to burn it all down to pieces, wipe it clean, and then build a new home. Not this, well, we're just going to attack the door. No, attack the whole house, man. So that's number two. And number three, which is towards the end here, listen, no matter how you feel about the president regarding the Epstein files, my only question to you is, what is the alternative? No matter how you feel about the president in Israel, what is the alternative? So why do I say that? Well, I say that because I don't think the problem is necessarily the president. I think the problem is that there's money in politics, so particularly the Supreme Court. That's what we should be screaming about. And I think if that is something that could be, talked about more often, and maybe we can get some of our representatives to push a bill to address that in a perfect world, we might be able to do something about it. So I'm saying I don't think there's much we can do about that, folks. But I think we can stay aware and also stay focused on what the objective truth is. Okay. Thank you guys for joining today. Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Bringing common sense commentary. If you guys found value, please subscribe to the show. All right. And share this with your friends, your family, and your colleagues. All right. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. Take care, everyone.